Hello and welcome to Last Watch. That's your host, Bernard Meisler. I'm your host, Tony DuShane.
No,
We
no,
are,
no. I'm Bernard Meisler. That's Tony DuShane.
did I see that wrong?
No. It's late night at the
We're
Last
taping this at
Watch.
late night, very late night. Um, but we're going to talk about this movie called Irresistible with Jon Stewart. Which,
Yes.
what do you think about it, Bernard?
Okay, Tony. So, in case people don't want to watch this entire 20 minutes, I'll give it to you here in a nutshell.
Yes.
Is
Because
this
we're gonna
movie
Go
is this movie good? It's good enough.
Great. Thanks for watching. We'll see
All
you.
right.
So we got a spoil. We're gonna tell you there's a big spoiler here. So if you haven't watched it yet and you're gonna watch it, don't listen to anything.
Yeah, well, maybe you can watch for a little while. We'll talk about it. We'll get to the spoiler later. But anyway, this movie is called Irresistible. It dropped about 10 days ago, and it's written and directed by the great Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart.
Jon Stewart. And
love
in these uncertain times, how nice it is to hear something from Jon Stewart, the voice of reason and sanity.
Yes.
And intelligence too. I mean, can we just talk about intelligence? Like everything's so fucking stupid these days.
Can I just rub my ear in a kind of weird sexual middle-aged man way while you say that?
Stupid, Tony. It's stupid.
But he's intelligent. Oh.
It just reminds me of my favorite line from The Godfather, Fredo Corleone. I'm not dumb, Mikey. I'm smart. I'm not dumb like everybody says I am. And, apply that to your favorite whoever public persona these days. Anyway, written and directed by Jon Stewart, his second feature film. And I liked it a lot. It's flawed. It's got some problems, maybe some things that bother you a little bit, but it's very well written. It's got some great characters. It's very funny. I especially love the opening when it shows the two political consultants. So the Democratic consultant played by Steve Carell, and the Republican consultant played by the always delightful Rose Byrne. And they're having a press conference, and they're both basically saying, I'm blind to you. Why do you believe a fucking word I say, you morons? And it was just like, oh, wow, that's kind of nice. So,
what a way to dig into a film, because it really sets the tone where it's just like, we're gonna talk about stuff that's kind of serious, but we're gonna have so much fun with it that you're gonna forget. I actually forgot as I was watching it. I forgot we were in a pandemic, and I forgot it was an election year. To get those two things, that's pretty cool when you're watching.
Yeah, and I mean, it's politically, it's obviously very sharp, Jon Stewart and everything, and it's basically, the theme is about how it's something Jon Stewart's been talking about for 15 years, maybe 20, about how money in politics ruins everything, right? So the joke of the movie is there's a mayoral race in a tiny town in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, with a population of they get to it later, maybe like 80 people, something like that.
I think I think it was more than that, but it was low.
It was low. I mean, so this one guy at a town meeting, he's a colonel.
Played by Chris Cooper.
Played by the great Chris Cooper. So Chris Cooper is another one of those guys where it's just like, oh, automatically add at least a half a star to whatever movie you're watching just because Chris Cooper's in it, right?
Yeah.
Great cast, by the way. Will Sasso, it was great to see Will Sasso from Mad TV, brilliant.
Natasha
Natasha Lyonne
from the slums of Beverly Hills, Orange
and
is the
Russian Doll. Yeah,
Russian Doll.
Yeah, so Natasha Lyonne was in it. Who else? I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, of course, Mackenzie Davis from *Halt and Catch Fire*. And the most recent Terminator movie, a gorgeous, tall drink of water, Mackenzie Davis.
And the perfect casting of someone from Wisconsin, because I was my ex-wife was from Wisconsin, so I hung out in Wisconsin, and they all look like her.
Yeah.
But maybe 2/3 are about 100 pounds put on her, but then there's other ones that are her.
Well, it's kind of like that joke from Fargo. They all look like her when they're 18. By the time they're 40, maybe it's, the
26, dude.
That milk-fed goodness goes a little bit too far after a while. But so anyways,
you got a harsh winter. We're in a pandemic right here, and I'm gaining weight. If I had a harsh winter every year, I'd be like putting on 60 pounds a year.
Well, I haven't hit the COVID-19, but I've definitely put on the COVID-10 for sure.
Oh.
Yeah. But anyway, so the joke of the movie is, the premise of the movie is there's this guy, Chris Cooper, who's an ex-colonel and greatly respected in his town. He gets mad at a town meeting, the way the town is treating some of its immigrant workers. And it gets captured on YouTube, and it causes a YouTube sensation, and it catches the eye of Steve Carell, who is just getting over the nightmare for the Democrats anyway, or for everybody.
As essentially he ran Hillary's.
Right. He ran Hillary's campaign essentially, and this is his way. He's like, oh, this is the future of the Democratic Party. We got to get these kind of like gun-toting, tough, manly military people to like run in deep red states, and that's how which is basically what happened in 2018, and it's happening again now, right? We've got like Amy McGrath running against Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. She's ex-military, and I forget the guy's name in Arizona who's running against Martha McSally. Is he military? Was he an ex-astronaut? Something like that. So anyway, and then the joke is that like, so Steve Carell comes in there to offer his services for free, and then Rose Byrne's character catches on to this, and so she comes in, and then they just start pouring millions and millions of dollars into this tiny little town, and hilarity ensues.
Yeah, it's a lot of good fun. Now here's a spoiler alert, because this is where I loved the movie until the last 10 minutes.
Okay.
And it's because when the whole town has set up this joke to get both of them there so they can make all the money for the town.
Right. So what happens is, like, it turns out here's the big spoiler alert, folks. It turns out that the whole YouTube thing was totally staged. And because there was a guy from this town, this tiny town, who worked in Steve Carell's office in New York. And so he set it up, and the plan was that they got the Democrats and Republicans to pour millions of dollars into their town, and it saved the town, which was on the precipice of dying out. It was a dying Midwestern town. So happy ending.
Right. And I think that's a writing problem, because especially when we're dealing with Chris Cooper, who's going around and going to New York City to get, let's get with the crazy, get all their money.
And that was a great scene when Chris Cooper goes to the fundraising party in the Upper East Side or whatever, in New York City, his first time in New York. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just tells them that they're just a bunch of idiots. I forget. You say it so much better.
Well, he basically like tells them the truth. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing here, and I'm asking you people for money, and it's wrong. This is what the problem with our whole system is, that it's run like this. And they're like, yeah, they just love it, the self-flagellation.
Yeah, exactly. and he gets a ton of money for it. So, but the problem is the whole movie's a con job. Right. And there's no breadcrumbing of the con job. And we have such a great actor like Chris Cooper. We have all these other actors. And then all of a sudden in the last 10 minutes, it's like, oh, wait, it was all a con job without any breadcrumbs.
Right. I
was like, are you kidding me? I feel hurt.
I kind of agree with you the more I thought about it, because I think it actually speaks a little bit to Jon Stewart's New York liberal elitism, right? That he was writing this movie, and Rose Byrne and Steve Carell, they've got it going on, and these people in town just kind of, we're going along to get along, whatever, and they're, but they're not portrayed as being dumb at all, right? And so it feels like there was this kind of false redemption. They're like, oh, they knew what they were doing all along. It was all a big trick, right? It wasn't necessary, and it was stupid. It was kind of stupid.
The problem is, and it was also probably because the cast is so good, they're coming at their characters with full heart, and so even like Will Sasso and the other mayor, they're coming at every scene in such a real way that there's no foreshadowing that it's a total con job in any way at all. It's like, can I have one breadcrumb? No. Can I just get a pumpkin seed maybe?
Yeah. No, I agree. And it was also like, it wasn't really necessary because it wasn't as if like Steve Carell and Rose Byrne were portrayed in a flattering light, right? They're awful. And from the get, right? And they're the ones who were obvious, it was obvious. They're the ones who are really clueless about the real world and what's going on, what's really happening. So you didn't need to like go, oh, you're so clueless. We pulled the wool over your eyes. It was all a big scheme. So, yeah.
At the same time, what a great movie until the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, totally worth it. Totally worth it. I'll excuse it for that. I had a really good time watching this movie. I laughed. What can I tell you? There's some really funny things in there. But again, maybe this is ultimately the biggest critique you could give for somebody like Jon Stewart and there's other people. It's maybe just a little bit too clever by half, maybe just a little bit like, oh, aren't I clever? Aren't I smart? Kind of, yeah. So, but again, fantastic cast. And kudos to Jon Stewart. This is only the second movie he's written and directed. I think his first one, I never saw it. It came out a few years ago, and I believe it was like a docudrama or something. It was a serious
film. He was still doing The Daily Show when he directed that movie because he had to take like 8 weeks off.
Right. And then they gave The Daily Show to John Oliver for like 2-3 months. And Oliver,
it was to John Oliver, that's right.
Yeah, and John Oliver was great, and then they didn't give him the job for some reason, which I'd never quite understood. And now he
went on to bigger and better things.
He went on to bigger and better things. I'll also tell you, but I have that same sort of critique about John Oliver almost. His show is great. It's really well researched, but it's just a little bit too jokey. It's not necessary. The jokes get really like juvenile and silly. Yeah. And it to my mind, it detracts from his show.
I stopped watching his show. What was it, in 2016? I'm like, it's not even funny anymore, and I'm not getting that much information.
Yeah.
The information I'm getting is so small that
I would disagree with that. I think you do get he does like drill down into topics in a way that most news shows do not. I've learned some things from watching John Oliver, which is more than I can say for most TV news.
But the problem with TV news is the bar is so low.
The bar is so low. And I mean, they did have that joke. And again, this is like, it's a super obvious joke, but I laughed at it anyway. They should hear CNN, and we're going to go to the, what do they call, the dectahedron box. And there's like 16 little people all just screaming at each other, and it's funny, but it's just like,
it's funny because it's sad.
Yeah. But I mean, and ultimately the problem I think some people might have with a movie like this is that, boy, is it not hard to do satire these days when everything is just so patently ridiculous what's going on? I mean,
and that's one of the reasons why I love the film, because you got Steve Carell, who's totally committed. Like, everyone's committed.
Yeah.
And it's written well. And then it just kind of took that dive at the end. If they, Anyway, I'm like, as a writer, I'm utterly insulted by the last 10 minutes.
Okay, I hear you. Yeah, I'm just utterly insulted by everything these days. I mean, and again, it's hard to do. I mean, it's interesting that a political satire comes out in these uncertain times when satire is like dead. I mean, we've got an election between like Weekend at Joe's versus like a raving lunatic clown.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. And then you've got like Trump. I think that maybe the most ridiculous or funniest words I've ever heard is like when Trump says Joe Biden's radical left agenda.
Oh God.
Joe Biden's like the most like moderate right of center kind of old school Democrat you could like possibly dream of. And anyway,
the only radical thing Joe Biden has is like constipation once in a while from too much Geritol.
Yeah. But again, totally worth seeking out this movie because again, we're headed towards those dark times when there's not going to be a whole heck of a lot of new content. I don't know what we're going to do, Tony. We're going to have to like start digging deep and watch episodes of Gilligan's Island soon or something like that.
I'm in.
Yeah. Okay. But geez, I don't know. I don't know what else there is to say about this.
Well, I guess we agree, and that's the problem. We totally
agree. We agree. Sorry, there's no conflict this week, I guess. But yes, but again, the dark times. Hollywood shut down. We're already, three of my favorite shows of the past decade are already delayed. That's Fargo, Atlanta, and Succession are already.
Oh my God! I was waiting for Atlanta.
Yeah, three tremendous shows. I'm going to go back and watch Atlanta for the beginning. Yeah. That might be one of the next things I do. Those are three shows you should definitely check out if you haven't seen them yet. But yeah, Hollywood shut down production like months ago, and then it started ramping back up, and it may be shutting back down any minute now, the way things are going.
I know they were shutting down production in New York. So I just talked to someone who was directing directing in New York, and they got everything in the can right as it was shutting down. It was shutting down as he was flying back to LA.
Oh, right. And again, that's the really frustrating thing about like those shows I just mentioned. Because I mean, I know Fargo, for instance, I think they were doing 12 episodes and they had 10 in the can. They were like weeks away from wrapping it up, and they just shut down.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, Irresistible. One other thing I wanted to mention is like the other political satire movie that's out, which I have to admit I actually thought was funnier than this, and I even enjoyed more, that I had a total hoot of a time, was The Hunt, which came out about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago maybe, and it's about it's done by the fine people at Blumhouse, who do like those nasty horror movies like Saw and Hostel. And
oh right, I can't watch any of those because those freak me out.
Yeah, I mean, this is but this had like more twists and turns than any movie I've seen in a long time. And minor spoilers, is like, you think this is the main character, oh, they just got shot in the head, like, oops. move on to the next. But
is it funny enough for a sensitive fellow like me who
yes, I think so. It's not super gross violence. There's some violence, but I thought it was hilarious. It was the story was about liberal coastal elites who kidnap deplorables and bring them on this island. And it's, it's yet another version of the most dangerous game, hunting humans for sports, and and it makes everybody pretty much look terrible. Yeah. So there's just a side recommendation, but again, look, we're running out of choices. So go see Irresistible. Get it.
Agreed. Thumbs up.
All right. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks for watching.
Take care.